October 23rd, 1970, New York. United Nations, the symbol of international peace, celebrates the silver jubilee of its historic birth. World leaders gathered for the momentous General Assembly session pledged themselves again to outlaw war from the face of the earth. In a memorable speech on the occasion, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi spells out India's compelling interest in peace and sets before the United Nations certain new goals.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, distinguished representatives, I bring to you and to the United Nations the greetings of 1/7 of mankind, the people of India. This Jubilee celebration is tinged with anxiety, and the mood is one of self-examination. The United Nations was born out of the experience of the Second World War and out of a desire to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, and to promote universal respect for fundamental human rights and international justice. Its founders were conscious of the attempt of a previous generation to build the League of Nations and of the reasons for its collapse. I have come here to reiterate my country's deep commitment to the principles and purposes of the Charter. Ever since India became sovereign, the United Nations has occupied a pivotal position in her foreign policy. 25 years later, the principle of the universality of the United Nations membership does not yet prevail. The system of unilateral action and exclusive alliances has not been disowned. The right of a people to choose their form of government is accepted in name only. In reality, there is considerable interference in the internal affairs of many countries. The limited wars which we have witnessed in the last 25 years are the consequence of such policies. The United Nations has not been able to prevent these wars or bring about a settlement. Countries which, like us, have won freedom newly have an attachment for this organization and a special stake in its functioning. All these 25 years, we have striven to make the United Nations stronger and to defend it from the corrosive effects of cynicism. We have borne burdens on its behalf, undertaking missions of peace to Korea, the Gaza Strip, and Congo. We have endeavored to serve the cause of peace in Indochina. We have sought to reconcile conflicting viewpoints in this forum. The coming 25 years, in which we must lay the foundations for a larger freedom for man, will make many demands on the leaders and peoples of all nations and on the administrators of the United Nations and its agencies. They have done good work in difficult conditions. The unfinished revolution is not confined to the poorer developing countries. The advanced countries also have their unfinished revolution. We find it in the movement for women's liberation, in the revolt of young people, the ferment in the universities, and the assertion of black and brown power. The world has become accustomed to nuclear arsenals and insensitive to their evil, perhaps even unable to comprehend the sheer magnitude of the fearsome destruction they hold. Ironically enough, neither those who possess the stockpiles nor those who seek to be protected feel secure. Power undermines itself from within and turns into impotence. However, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which was formulated later, does not stop the production of nuclear weapons or remove stockpiles, but perpetuates the division between nuclear powers and others, thus creating yet another vested interest. Even a small reduction in the production of armaments would release vast material and technological resources for human welfare and would help the narrowing of economic disparities. But our biggest impediment has been the attitudes of the strong nations, the kind of terms which they have set for financial outflows to the developing countries, and the manner in which the poor nations are shut out from their markets. Some nations use men, money, propaganda to impose their economic philosophy on others. Our top priority is economic and social development. Cannot an organization such as the United Nations direct our thinking in terms of the larger well-being? Time, space, matter, life, all the old certainties are under question. The exploration of outer space and the research into the nature of life are placing new responsibility in man's hands. Many countries are turning their attention towards the seabed and its treasures. The United Nations should ensure that the resources born of all these explorations are used not merely for the aggrandizement of individual nations, but for the welfare of the family of man. We have always affirmed that the way of the world should be not power, but peace, not confrontation, but cooperation. The world is not for destruction, it is for development. Let the United Nations strive to bring about an era of international transformation by consent, a new era of justice and of peace. Thank you.